and we don't have to do this anymore.
All right.
Be resplendent to no longer have to deal with time going. When I was 13, to move from Ohio to Indiana. So excited that I no longer had to deal with the time change. Little did I know it would follow me. I was less than pleased. Still following me. It'd be great if it just did not exist. That would be. There's no sense in it. I've heard all the things about saving farmers time and blah 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 blah. Having lived around farmers most of my life, I know that's baloney. It's baloney.
Farmers are going to take time no matter what.
That's exactly right. They're going to do what they want, when they want, how they want. They will adapt and overcome no matter what the circumstances are. The primary argument was about being able to get to the bank. Banking is no longer. What is this? Banking is no longer about being mobile or about going into a physical structure. You can do it on their phones from the tractors. Shoot, the tractors could probably do it now. Tractors could do it themselves. Were that a thing? What's up, Dylan?
What's going on?
Hey, you made it.
Another damn paradise. How's Wally?
We went to hockey.
Say what, boss?
I went to hockey, but there was nobody there except for like two other guys.
Hockey.
Yep. Every other Sunday there's hockey. I just pick up hockey, but I'll go and play.
What position are you playing?
Well, what I mean, it's just pick up hockey, so there isn't really a position. But I like to play wing whenever that we play in 5v5.
No, yeah.
Yeah.
So you're fast, huh?
Yeah. I've been skating since I was 12, so.
Got the speed.
Yep.
Wing's also a fairly aggressive position, isn't it?
Yeah, it can be.
Can be.
It's more, you have to be on defense and offense at the same time. It's pretty fun.
Yeah. Very intense.
Like camping. So what's on the agenda today?
Today's topic is expectations, and the Bible verse is Ephesians 5:25. This one's probably a little bit early for you, but I'm sure Aaron will have some resonance with it.
Okay.
Speaking of, it's 7:02. Might as well get on with the getting on, huh?
Yep.
So, I should really probably create like an intro or something. Should have Caden write some music.
You're gonna have a pie.
Yeah. Fancy noise, crowd cheering, do the announcer voice thing. It'll be amazing. Do an intro, make an outro, play those on the regular, just like an adult.
Do some like theme music.
Yeah. Caden writes EDM. I can sure I could get him to write something. Or I could use, I used to be in a band. I still got some songs running around, but I'm not sure they're the right vibe for this. All that aside, so old business. Not really a whole lot tracking out there in old business.
Yeah.
Big thing is working on marketing. And I'm going to cover all that in new business, I guess. Well, no, that should probably actually be old business. So spent most of the week going through marketing, trying to figure out how to communicate. Got several messages last week. What is this? I've seen lots of videos, and these are coming from people that like a lot of this stuff. I like the videos, but I didn't really know what it was. So I was like, I should probably say those words specifically. So spent a lot of time this week, trying to figure out exactly how to communicate the vision, and then made a video series thereabouts. Worked on marketing for the coin, trying to pivot that same kind of idea, trying to communicate what it is and something that's not going to be uh, overly weird or too pushy. I don't want to do pushy sales. I want to. I'm looking for people that are looking. You know what I mean? I don't want to
Right.
convince anyone. I want to fill a need. I know the need's there. It's just how to communicate it. So spent a lot of time on that this week. I think that's about it for old business. Oh, Dylan, Aaron has something for you.
Mailing address.
Yeah, or you could do that. I think that's it for old business. Anybody got anything else for old business?
Not that I can think of.
I don't think so. No. Do I need to get a hold of Steve? See where he's at? He was online.
He was online. He may be otherwise engaged. You can reach out if you like.
I'm gonna reach out to him real quick.
Anything else in old business? Motion to close.
Motion.
Second. All those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, same
Aye.
sign. Seeing none. New business. So this week the plan is to continue to work on marketing and pivot back to the hardcovers on the books. Try and get those caught up, and then also started loading the videos for the Gamma Alpha Pi YouTube channel, and then adding those back into the courses. I'm going to continue working on that. I hit an upload limit today. That was interesting. Never had that happen before.
On TikTok?
YouTube.
On YouTube.
Yeah. So I've got a Gamma Alpha Pi that I've been playing with on YouTube, trying to figure out what the every platform is different, has a different set of viewers that consume things differently. Starting to figure out TikTok, but I'm really wondering if it's going to survive long term. Even if it does survive long term, it's pivoting, and all the platforms are kind of flattening out. They all seem to be kind of running the TikTok algorithm, and as much as it's all about consumability and watch time, and they're all pivoting to pay for play, up to and including TikTok. They want you to pay for exposure. TikTok is the least expensive. YouTube is probably the most expensive, but they're all getting pretty pervasive on it. Either way, I still need to figure out exactly what platform likes what content and what format. YouTube, I've spent the least amount of time on as far as trying to learn it. I'm just literally, it takes the most soaking time before they'll trust you, I guess. So I've been letting the accounts age and posting content just for the purpose of repeatability and whatnot. I'm sure it's messing up my feed, but to that end, I've been doing the Bible verse every morning, and I'm wondering if I'm not messing up how it sees the channel by conflating multiple formats or multiple subjects. It's already a broad niche, but by adding that, I think it may be taking the niche too broad. Does anybody know anything about that?
I
We
don't.
cover a lot of different topics.
Yeah.
So, uh, eventually the algorithm's going to pick up that it is a hodgepodge type podcast type environment, right?
Yeah.
This,
It's all self-improvement centric, but there's a whole lot of pieces to making yourself better. I'm not like how to better brush your teeth. It's just, there's a lot that's involved in being a whole human, and even with everything that's involved in this, I'm not really touching all of it. But it takes a lot to be a whole human.
but I don't think we should bend our format to the algorithm. I think we should let the algorithm form an opinion about us.
Yeah, that's kind of why I'm staying the course. I'm trying to understand. I'm trying to understand what people need and deliver that. And I know this isn't going to serve everyone. I know there's some people that are going to be absolutely infuriated that I even mentioned God, but I'm not for those people, I guess. I figure if I can get to 20% of the men, then that'll be a bump in the world. You know what I mean? That'll be a dent in the universe. So that's where I'm headed. That's all I've got for new business. Anybody got anything else?
All right.
Motion to close.
So my coworker that I have has this theory that there is an invisible barrier on Antarctica, and behind that barrier is an entire civilization.
There's quite a
Hold that
lot
thought.
of YouTube and stuff floating around about that.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know how much is true because I know, like, according to Einstein's theory, there's a magnetic field around Earth, and then apparently there's like some kind of air barrier between. I'm like, of course, I don't really trust this guy. He's kind of. I'm like, of course, I don't really trust this guy. He's kind of a questionable type. But I wanted to see y'all's thoughts about that.
So, hold on. Before we dive into this, let's go ahead and close old business. All those opposed, or all those in favor of closing, or excuse me, new business. All those in favor of closing new business signify by saying aye.
Hi.
All those opposed, same sign. All right, new business closed, and down the rabbit hole we go. So, domes over Antarctica. Let's separate the primary conversation that usually is reciprocal to this, which is flat Earth. Don't want to go down that rabbit hole, so let's just focus on the is reciprocal to this, which is flat Earth. Don't want to go down that rabbit hole, so let's just focus on the Antarctica piece. So this generally comes out of the legends of what happened during Operation High Jump, which was a massive military exercise to the Antarctic, completely verifiable. And that's about where the verification ability stops. There's rumors upon rumors of what happened during Operation High Jump. Were they down there chasing Nazis and Nazi bases? Were they down there chasing aliens and alien bases? Is Antarctica Atlantis? There's a story about the senior military official during Operation High Jump taking a plane into the center of Antarctica and finding green spaces and roaming animals. His plane being taken over, flown remotely, landing, experiencing hyper advanced civilization, then escorted out. And there's another one that's similar to that, but they go underground. There's another one that's similar to that, but they go into a hole in the center of the Earth. There's one parallel to that where they go into a hole in the center of the Earth, but they're at the North Pole, not the South Pole. I have yet to see any verifiable evidence thereof. I know that there's a lot of restricted space, not enough information, verifiable information, or corroborating information that I can see that leads me to believe it's anything other than a fanciful tale to sell marketing or advertising. Leads me to believe it's anything other than a fanciful tale to sell marketing or advertising. But, is it possible? Yes. Would it be extremely interesting? Absolutely. The dome over it, it kind of bounces around those different flavors, but it's something like the dome over the North Pole where Santa Claus and the elves are. You can't see in, you can't see out. It's not detectable by radar and all the things.
Right.
Again, sounds super interesting. Is it possible? Theoretically, is it probable? I don't know. I've yet to see any evidence thereof.
Right.
Well, there are a lot of people that work and live in Antarctica that would disagree with that statement about the ice fall. The military has quite a bit going on down there. Raytheon Polar Services contracts for the Department of Defense, and they do all kinds of stuff down there. The cool thing about the polar regions is that the atmosphere is the thinnest at the poles, and the ionosphere is the closest at the poles. And it makes certain things easier, things that you try and do them, say, like at the equator, where the atmosphere is the thickest and the atmosphere is the furthest away. I have a good friend that was in Antarctica, and in fact, I almost went to Antarctica after I got out of the Navy to work with Raytheon.
That would have been cool.
Well, cold.
Yeah.
Would have been cold. And you could probably go and work down there and see for yourself.
I don't want to go to Antarctica.
9 months on, 3 months off. Pays like poop, but you get good bonus.
It's an
Yeah.
amazing thing on a resume and an amazing experience, I would imagine. You would learn some shit and see some shit and probably meet some incredible people.
Oh, for sure.
Oh yeah, for sure. Some weirdos probably too.
Yeah, I'm
You gotta
sure.
be of a certain mindset
It'd probably be
to
kind of like the
It
survive.
takes
space
a
station.
certain it takes a certain level of crazy to willingly go to Antarctica, I feel like.
Most likely.
Well, there's a
Yeah.
certain level of isolation that happens when you go to those kind of places. There's
Yeah.
no, oh fuck this, I'm out. I'm gonna
Yeah.
take the next flight out. You're there. Like
And there's no
getting
getting
in and
out.
out is tough. As far as the ice wall goes, there are some pretty steep iceberg cliffs around Antarctica. And some of the maritime stories that you get probably stem from that.
Yeah.
Um, but no, like as far as being a big hole and it's not passable and all that stuff, you're gonna have to. You couldn't melt me and pour me into that theory. I've seen satellite imagery over Antarctica.
Yeah.
Know people that have been in Antarctica. As far as like the theories of the Greenland inland, there actually is some tundra in Antarctica. Antarctica is a continent. It's a mass, a land mass with
Yeah.
mountains and things. Whereas
Yeah,
the
there's a
North
bunch of
Pole, it's just there's a lot of the vast majority of what goes on in Antarctica is military and government. And when it comes to military and government, there's not a lot of talk that happens. And in the void
yeah,
of not a lot of talk is a vast room for imagination to grow.
vast room for conspiracy.
Conjecture and
Mm-hmm.
as a human species across time, whatever we don't understand, we tend to make up stories to fill in the gaps. Some of those stories are incredibly fanciful and a little bit they're bullshit.
If I
So
told you I was worked in an air base for the Navy in the middle of the desert, and I worked on things that I can't talk to you about, you're gonna go to bed tonight and think about all the wonderful and weird things that probably exist that I can't talk about.
and the truth would be, it was literally just some new switch or something that they've developed that really isn't all that cool or interesting, except for like the 300 people on the planet. But
Right.
it's ITAR restricted, ergo you can't talk about it, and people make up all kinds of things. It's just a switch, or some new tracking
Yeah.
software, or some whatever that gives them some capability that they feel gives them a capability over the enemy. Ergo, you can't talk about it. That they feel gives them a capability over the enemy. Ergo, you can't talk about it. In that gap, people fill in the gap with all kinds of nonsense.
Yeah. Which is kind of funny because some of those same people, whenever we do make discoveries, they'll say, "Oh, well, that's not true." Like us, putting people on the moon. Oh, that didn't happen.
Yeah, so putting people on the moon exact a very good analogy story wise to the Antarctica thing, right? So you have camps that swear that what was it, Kubrick produced it on a soundstage, and they've got a whole mountain of what they produce as evidence for it, and then you have uh, an entire echelon of people that are like, no, it actually happened.
So
Right.
the funny thing about the moon, though, is that they did film a moon landing in a
In the
studio,
soundstage, yeah.
and they did that for a couple of different reasons. There was some of it was a little bit conspiratorial. They weren't sure if the moon landing was going to work, and so there's two parts to this. First of all, leading up to it, they trained. They trained and they trained and they trained. And there's no environment like the moon other than maybe underwater.
Right.
Number two, we were in the middle of the space race. It was absolutely crucial that we landed on the moon first. We were
Right.
going to try just to land on the moon. That was like 100% happening, but we weren't 100% sure if it was going to go off without a hitch. And so they filmed a great deal of it in order to ensure that if something was to happen, then the mission would be successful either way. And then secondly, they didn't have a lot of good video, all that kind of stuff. And so a lot of what was broadcast during the live, supposedly the live, was reels from the training and from the mock-up, simply to give the nation that feel that they want. So it's the truth of it is somewhere in between. The truth of it is that we needed to get there first. We needed the nation to be patriotic and enthralled and excited about it. And we needed the rest of the world to look upon us as the winners of the space race, because Russia was kicking our ass and other countries weren't very happy about the vast majority of our technology coming from Project Paperclip. So were there some footages that were filmed in a studio of the moon landing? Yep. Was that broadcast as live and not really made clear that it was not real actual live footage as it happened? Sure, that happened. Was it the best way to go about things? I'm not the one to tell you. But did we land on the moon? I'm gonna have to say we probably landed on the moon.
Did you watch that interview with Elon Musk?
I didn't. The concept of what's happening, like with Doge and all that. But Elon Musk has so much hot air being blown up his ass and inflating his head right now that it's disgusting. You know, they just had their second. They just had their second fuck up with their rocket, for the same reason as the first one blew up. And it's like, I think he's splitting himself up amongst it, and then the hubris that he demonstrates, like whenever I don't know if you watched the speech that he had, presidential address to Congress. It was, I don't know, man. I'm about all that shit. I think it's great cutting back waste and fraud and stuff, but I think that they need to be doing it in a way that's right, in a way that's accurate.
Right.
And I don't care for some of the misinformation that's coming out. There's plenty of accurate information that can be exposed. I watched.
Right.
I mean, you're taking on USAID, and if you don't understand what USAID is, then you're probably not going to understand it all anyway. But some of the things like that they've announced aren't actually accurate. It gives more ammunition to in a way that's 100% accurate and 100% transparent, with no side eye shifty, and they're kind of with no side eye shifty, and they're kind of doing it in a way that is side eye shifty, even though it's a great thing to do, and it's just going to cause more problems in the long run if they're not. He's doing it more for the show than he is for the actual good of what he's doing. And I'm not saying that what he's doing is bad. I'm saying what he's doing is good. The way he's going about it, though, I don't appreciate.
We're losing you, Aaron. Your mic sounds like you're talking through sandpaper, like it's an old phonograph or something, and you're getting quieter and quieter as time goes by.
Well, that's weird, because I'm
Now you're loud
there
again.
doing the same thing. I'm lagging?
No, you're not lagging. It just sounds like an old phonograph.
Oh, it's probably my handler
You're
telling me
getting.
to shut up.
It sounds better now.
Yeah. I agree that they need to take the politics out of it and take the show out of it and just be honest and just do it. It's
Yep.
I feel like people are more doing stuff for the media part of it now than anything.
I agree.
Well, that's the
Like freaking, Elon Musk going up on stage with a chainsaw. Like, what the hell is that?
That's a callback to Argentinian president who did essentially the same campaign in Argentina, and he has made great headway doing that in Argentina. He's not out of the woods yet, but he has changed the course of the nation significantly for the betterment of the people and the better outcomes of the nation. He's still got a long way to go, but it's a hearkening to that. It is political theater, and the political theater really needs to stop.
It
We've
really
got
does.
yeah, we need to get past the politics and past the division, and come together as a country. The best thing that came out of the moon landing is a common aspiration for the United States. The For that short
Exactly.
period of time, the U.S. had a common aspiration, no real enemies, just a common aspiration, and it wasn't bombing Russia; it was beat the Russians, more like a basketball game or a football game. There was no real
Yeah.
animosity, but there wasn't a foe or an adversary, but it wasn't life and death. It was a matter of aspiration and pride. And in that time, the nation was some of the best it has ever been. The We did a lot of great things, and I think we could benefit great ever been. The We did a lot of great things, and I think we could benefit greatly from a common aspiration again. What's up, Steve?
Absolutely.
All right. Any challenges anybody's facing this week?
We are adjusting to a new lifestyle.
Uh-huh. Well, that
Ashley starts her job next week.
I was going to get there, man. I was going to
And
say celebrations, and that's a big celebration, right?
it is a celebration. It's also a challenge because she's going to be in office now. So that is the end of her remote efforts. And so I'm going to find myself here with the boys at school and her at work for like 10 hours a day by myself to my own effects,
Left to your own devices.
my own devices. That's going to
That's
be a
either a
challenge.
challenge or an opportunity, Aaron. By the way, hi guys. All
What's up,
right.
Steve? That is an opportunity. It's an opportunity for growth. Anybody else got any challenges or victories?
Well, since I've been on a gap. I've moved, I think, because I moved from Kingfisher to Oklahoma, Oklahoma. So now I have an hour commute to drive to work
Womp womp.
each way, but that's about it. I mean, I'm still saving up money and doing everything I need to.
If you can find a closer job, bro, do it. That hour drive is going to tear on you, and it's going to be real hard on your vehicle. It'll be hard on your budget as well.
It adds up, and your mental. You know, I drove every day. This thing is it a lot of back roads or is it in congestion through city traffic?
I just take the highway down.
Okay, if there's not a lot of traffic, it's not as bad as just fighting that daily grind, but it still wears on you.
When I was traveling, I found that morning, or well, the time before and after work was my time to myself to reflect.
Yes, if you're not
just
fighting
one
traffic.
thing.
If you're not
Just one
fighting
thing, I can get those couple hours a day just to sit and listen to music and whatever.
Let your headspace clear.
You can
Or I'll put on a podcast or something.
Yeah. Oh yeah, man. It's like I said. I think there's something, some therapy to it. If you're not fighting traffic and dealing with a bunch of morons, because that was the blessing about it, is it was all back roads and there really wasn't a lot of traffic until you got into the heart of Conway, which was 5 minutes from the office. You know what I mean? So it wasn't too bad.
Conway's a mess.
It is.
But no, it does it's turned my 9-hour shifts into an 11-hour shift. Feels like.
No, it has.
Still not too bad.
Yeah. I always believe the company should pay you from the time you leave the house to the time you return home. Always felt that would have been. I think that's ideal.
Yeah, but they ain't
The
good
cool
for
thing
you.
is Walmart gives you paid time off.
Right.
That's
So it's
cool.
only like an hour a week, but it's still worth it.
Well, that's most companies, right?
What's that?
Most companies, hour a week, but it accumulates, correct?
So it's a
After you work for 8 weeks, he'll have an 8-hour day. Paid off.
Right.
Yeah. Which I'm hoping
Yeah,
to save those up for a little get together in July. I don't have a new job by that.
Yeah, that's
Well, you know what? I got a question now. You're willing to travel, right, Dylan?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I mean, there's a bunch of travel jobs and stuff. We'll talk about it as things come up. Like I was telling Aaron, I'm going to have a lot of positions open as I start building what I'm doing with my company. And if you want to get into what we're doing, I'm not saying SRI is going to be your, these days you don't stay at a corporation. Most people don't, there's no such thing as retirement anymore. But it's a
Right.
great skill if that's something you're interested in. No such thing as retirement anymore. But it's a
Right.
great skill if that's something you're interested in. Just whatever but if you're interested, man, it's, building career and skill sets. That's what's really matters.
Yeah. Oh, I know. I'll have to think about it,
But it
I
is heavy
do like,
travel.
yeah, I do like staying in one place because I've traveled my entire life. It's different to be able to just sit in one place and be in a place that you know.
I agree. I mean, that's it, but it depends on what you're doing too, right? So, luckily, for instance, I travel a lot, but mine is different. It's not like I'm going on a job now. I might end up in Austin for 2 months standing up a project, which kind of, not really thrilled about that. But that's, eventually those skills, think about this. You sacrifice when you're young, a little bit of it if you're toward a goal. Because there's a difference between working just to work versus working toward a goal and developing skills from that work.
Yeah.
Sometimes there's a sacrifice to get to that bigger picture. So, that's part of being young, and that is an advantage too. You don't have kids. You don't. You can kind of take some risk, fall on your face, and get back up, and the only person hurt is you. And that's
Right.
a lot easier to recover from instead of when you got responsibilities of others. So,
Absolutely. Take your
man.
risks and go hard now, buddy. You're
Yep.
wild
Yeah.
and free. But as Steve said, dude, that means like the Nusca Ipsum part of the exercise with this, you need to spend the time to understand who you are and what you want. I mean, understand that it's not going to be perfect. I'm just now getting to start to understand what I want to do when I grow up.
Yeah,
And
no kidding. That's exactly it. I'm 45 and I just figured it out maybe 5 years ago.
Carl Jung says everything
Right.
until 40 is practice, right? But you need to at least have a direction, right? So take the time to figure out who you are. I've made the Book of the Brother, the Book of the Coin, and Nosca to Ipsum free. I've made the courses free. If you want to go through those, I highly recommend it to any human being, especially men. But they're free. If you need help, reach out. I will be happy to help you. I will be happy to help you get through it. But having a purpose, a mission, and vision in your life will literally change your life. It's the biggest gap most people face in their lives. They don't know what they're doing or why they're doing it. They're living up some expectation that they think they're supposed to do, and they're fucking miserable because of it.
Right.
Finding out, if you don't determine what you want to do in life, someone will give you something to do, and it will be slavery.
Right.
Finding out, if you don't determine what you want to do in life, someone will give you something to do, and it will be slavery. You have to understand what you're doing and why, and move in a direction on purpose. It doesn't have to be perfect, and it doesn't have to be exact, but at least a bearing. Your life will turn out much, much better if you know what you're doing, why you're doing it, and where you're going, at least in a general direction. Go as hard as you can now.
Yeah.
But you gotta eat that pie one slice, one bite at a time.
Yeah, it's one step at a time for sure.
It is, and
Like,
part
your
of it's
next
figuring
step-
it out.
The biggest
Your
part is
next
figuring
step,
it out.
Yeah.
is getting yourself a place to stay, to put your feet on the ground, a home base to work out of. That's number one.
Are you familiar with
Yeah,
Maslow's
that's what we're working on
hierarchy?
now.
Right.
We're getting with some friends, and we're actually going to be splitting a lease so that there's no, kicking each other out or anything like that. But
Healthy.
we're going to be finding a place to split rent. So, because they're kind of hurting too, so it'll help both of us.
That's wise, man. I think
Yeah.
hiring, so like college kids and young hiring. So like college kids and young folks be able to bunk up some rooms or split up a big house. You don't need
Right.
a whole lot as a young person, and the community is actually just as important as the shelter. But there's a lot of struggle that comes with that.
If you can get 3 guys together and pool your resources and try to obtain a goal, cover your expenses, and y'all are on the same path. And I wish I would have known this or thought of this years ago. Think about how much you guys can accomplish if all you guys got is yourselves to worry about. You take care of your
Right.
bills, and then you guys look for investments and growing a business or something.
It's
Think
actually,
about the buying power and the things and the power you guys have as a group.
that's actually how Mr. Beast became
Right.
Mr. Beast. He got together
Yeah.
with 6 other dudes with a like mindset, and they just started grinding on their goals and visions. They had a common purpose, common goal, common vision. They came together and worked through it, and all of them are friggin' rock stars now.
Yeah.
They can do pretty much
Oh, most
whatever
of
they
them.
want. Well, yeah, most of them. They can do pretty much whatever they want. The Asian population figured out the hack to college, and it's essentially the same thing. Their big hack is not necessarily their mean intelligence or something about their upbringing. Their big hack to college and their success in higher education is study groups. They get together. They don't go at it as individuals. They go at it as collectives. So they take common classes, and those common classes get together in large groups and help each other. Instead of trying to do it themselves, they work together. And in working together, they're extremely successful. Not only do you have they work together. And in working together, they're extremely successful. Not only do you have collective understanding to solve problems, but you also have accountability and all kinds of other things that go along with that. Community is super important. All right,
Certainly is.
30 minutes in. Anything else? Challenges, success, or rabbit holes?
Um, I'm kind of I'm in limbo with mine. I've had some challenges dealing with my executive leadership and my operations team, which is overburdened, understaffed because of the lack of trust to share. And so it's a challenge because they're so overburdened, they're missing stuff. So that's part of the reason I might have to go to Austin, is because I'm going to have to take a more operational type role because they don't trust anyone but me. And and it's very frustrating because really there's people out there, we just don't, they don't like letting go. You know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely. Dude.
And
I'm
and it's hurting. It's going to hurt my pocket if I don't do it.
It's going to hurt the whole company. So,
Yep.
not delegating is one of the biggest challenges that companies and leadership faces. In one of my previous roles, a big portion of the problems in the company were because the CEO was the only person that had all the information. They siloed out all the departments, made him the only point of commonality, and he was the only one that had all the critical information. So when he left, catastrophic failure. One, the company couldn't operate up to potential nowhere near it because the speed a constraint. Because lack of training, lack of skill, lack of resources, lack of tools, and lack of latitude. Operations needs to have a lot of latitude to be able to do the job, and if they get bogged down in systems and processes and procedures, there's a lot of things that fall in the gray area that they won't be able to do. They have to go up the ladder for approval, and the approval just never happens, and it just keeps getting worse and worse. So they're generally overloaded, not only workload, but process, and it's a downward spiral. It's actually, sadly, very, very common. I hope that...
The good news is... oh, sorry, go ahead.
No,
Finish your thought. As I say, the good news is I'm a very vocal person. Ain't I, Aaron? Like, I was working on my reason I was late tonight is I was working on my report, talking to my director, putting together a game plan on how to communicate this to the CEO without throwing them under the bus.
Yeah. Well, present
and because you're not going to do any good there. If you throw someone under the bus, you just look like shit and you put yourself on the firing line.
Yeah.
So
no, present it as the business opportunity for improvement, right? So I see some areas we can improve. I think this is going to be the financial impact. I think this is going to be what's required. I'd like your opinion on taking this initiative forward. And more often than not, it's going to be received well as long as you can present the business case and the business outcome you're trying to convey.
Right. Got to figure out solutions, man. And then on top of it, we have to build a call center, a 24-hour call center for the entire country. And that's another, there's a lot of operation. This is what happens when you have growth, by the way. So they want to grow and expand, and operations has been so stuck in one lane for 15 years that they're pulling back. And I'm like, dude, I'm not going to say, because I told my director, I said, I feel like he's trying to tank the project. And I realized once I kind of read in between the lines and didn't act on film, because I'm like, this is my baby, right? You're fucking hurting my shit. Excuse my language, but and then once I kind of read through it, and because I processed it once, the first time I processed it, I was pissed.
Yeah.
Then I processed it again, and I'm like, okay, from an operational standpoint, from his point of view, I get it. Now let's solve for it. But before I react, and that's a key for anybody listening. Your first impression is not always accurate. Don't let your initial feelings create action. Digest it, pre-read it. You, Aaron, he's very much like you in a sense of Dr. No. Because he's so critical on stuff, people don't know how to handle that. Well, Aaron, you trained me how to handle that and deal with it and think from your perspective. Aaron, you trained me how to handle that and deal with it and think from your perspective, which is not a bad thing. So, there's a willingness there for his change, but he's very much still here
to that if you're going to do something or say something that's going to happen, he wants to know that you have the steps, the plan mapped out, and then the expectations of what's going to happen once you get there.
Well, the thing is, it's his problem. I brought him the opportunity. The CEO wants the job, right? So in this instance, scale by no means, and it's new work. So even though it's similar to what we do, it's scale by no means, and it's new work. So even though it's similar to what we do, it's still new. And it's on a much bigger scale, interesting. It is what it is, right? We're going to have to work through it. I'm going to have to sacrifice a little bit, but in the long run, it should, I believe as long as everyone's committed, we'll be fine. But the challenge is getting him to release some clutches, hire some support on the operational side, or promote. We have some guys that could do this, so that we can take on more work. Because if you want me to bring in whales,
operationally it'll be a challenge. Building the call center is not as operationally it'll be a challenge. Building the call center is not as hard as you think. You can outsource most of that. The problem is going to be operationally it'll be a challenge. Building the call center is not as hard as you think. You can outsource most of that. The problem is going to be in the scaling, having the information available for them to be able to be effective.
It's a ticket dispatch system, so not too terrible.
Yeah. And that can actually be automated through AI very largely and fairly easily now. Centra has an AI customer service agent that's actually fairly strong. You can upload your entire database to it, and it's pretty cheap per instance. You may want to check that out.
So what about like a dispatch break fix type scenario?
I
don't know about a break fix. That might be a little harder.
That's that's like we still need live people, I think, for that.
Yeah.
And so, but I don't know. If you have some solutions, man, shoot me a solution. I'll look at it.
So I was SVP for a global customer service organization that involved break fix. I can fill your head full of all kinds of nonsense.
I like nonsense. It's the only way you learn.
It's like everything else, man. You break it down into what are you trying to accomplish, what is your constraints and your resources and your latitude, and your solution from there. It's not that bad. It's not that complicated. It's just don't get bogged down in all the metrics, dude. Friggin' MBAs want to metric the shit out of it. And really, at the end of the day, does your customer stay with you? Are they happy? Do they recommend you? Do they keep buying from you? Those are the four things that matter. Everything else is malarkey.
I agree. And that's the whole thing. You know, we've I think I've got a solution for part of the dispatch. I'm not a big fan of it, but a fan of it either. I'm just saying.
Yeah, but you can regionalize those solutions too, man. So you can go different
Okay.
tier solutions for different regions, and you don't
Mhm.
have to have one size does not fit all. So it's like a carpenter with his tool bag, right, or whatever trade you're familiar with. The carpenter does not only carry a hammer. He's got hammers and knives and tape measures and pliers and dikes and all kinds of things in his tool bag for all kinds of different solutions. And he's got a toolbox in the back with a whole lot more tools. So trying to fix everything with the hammer is only going to make a toolbox in the back with a whole lot more tools. So trying to fix everything with the hammer is only going to make everyone cry.
Right. Yeah. So that's my fun, and and this is the fun part of it, right? Look, it's a good problem to have.
Yeah, man, growth problems are good problems to have. They're some of the most
Yeah.
challenging, especially if you're capitally constrained, but they're good problems to have.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like I said, I don't think we're capital constrained as much as it's all.
And, if people aren't willing individually or collectively to accept change, you've got a hard problem.
Yeah, that's it. That is the truth. That's it. That is the truth. Because that's growth. You can't grow and not change.
Facts. Which
That's
actually,
kind of the nature and essence of it.
yeah, which leads into tonight's conversation about expectations. Womp womp.
So going to this would be an unfortunate thing, but I'm probably going to bounce off of here. My wife and kids are coming back up the driveway with the groceries, and I'm going to be dispatched for at least the next 20 or 30 minutes.
Go do what you gotta do, big dog.
Yeah, man.
How dare you be a father
Yeah,
and a
right.
husband?
Husband and father first. So that's actually the Bible verse for tonight. Ephesians 5:25. Husbands, love your wives as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her. So while Aaron's off doing his dadly duties.
I'll be back after if you guys are still on, but I'm going to go take care of this.
All right, man. So Christ died for the church. Context: this verse is part of Paul's instruction to husbands in the book of Ephesians. He uses the analogy of Christ's love as demonstrated for the church by giving his life for her. His life for her. Give up himself for her. This emphasizes the self-sacrificing nature of Christ's love as he was willing to die for the church. Practical applications: prioritize your wife. Make your wife a top priority in your life. Love unconditionally. Love your wife without conditions or expectations. Sacrifice for her. Be willing to sacrifice your own desires for the sake of your wife's happiness and expectations. Sacrifice for her. Be willing to sacrifice your own desires for the sake of your wife's happiness and well-being. Cherish her. Treat your wife with love, respect, and tenderness. Protect her. Be a protector and a provider for your wife. Key takeaways. Husbands are called to love their wives deeply and sacrificially. Christ's love for the church serves as a model for husbands or for husbandly love. Husbands should be willing to give themselves for the sake of their wives. Now, that doesn't mean that you are to completely destroy yourself or change everything about yourself to capitulate to the whims of a madman or madwoman. But it requires sacrifice. And as a husband, we are to do so gladly. There's going to be, any relationship, there's going to be strife. And some things aren't important. As a young man, I realized if it doesn't matter in 5 years, it probably doesn't matter. So act accordingly. Any thoughts on loving your wife as Christ loved the church?
Well, I mean, technically, when you take a wife, you're literally almost, you're taking responsibility over another person. As a man, we take responsibility over those that we love, right?
Yeah.
And that's a pretty standard act that I believe is probably the key. And sacrifice is another word. it's lost in today's modern culture. I feel sacrifice is a huge thing. I was telling my daughter this last night. She's like, I'm so sick of these guys. They're so immature. They don't seem to really care about me. She's so frustrated.
Yeah.
She's really was just ranting about it. And I'm like, honey, said a guy's going to sacrifice for you. If he cares about you, he will go and take on an entire army for you, and you will know it. Because that's the love that a man has to protect, and be with, the person he cares about. He will sacrifice, and I don't believe that men should sacrifice their happiness for anybody. I'm very much in the thing that a man has to have his purpose. Now, it could be his family, then it's not a sacrifice. That's fine. It is what your purpose is. But the woman at the same time, the relationship is a sacrifice for both.
Yes.
It is that you both sacrifice a piece of yourself to build something greater within your temple, your home. And when there's a very special thing. My parents had it for a long time before Dad went crazy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's a very rare thing. Aaron and Ashley have a very unique relationship that I very much admire, and it's very special. I love how much they love each other and how they take care of each other, how they honor each other, how they, you know what I mean? That's how people are supposed to be to one another.
Yeah, man. Yeah, man. Exactly. It's service bi-directionally.
Yeah. Yes.
Are you always happy? No. Are there sometimes you're really mad at him? Yes.
Yes.
It's service to each other. It's sacrifice for each other. It's supporting each other. It's loving each other. It's forgiving each other. Over and over and
One
over.
thing that I've learned, I'm young, but I learned that relationships aren't always 50-50, especially with a significant other. Sometimes, it's 70-30. For other days, it's 30-70.
For sure.
Right.
So,
And the thing is, like,
part of it is being able to pick up the slack in your significant others.
yeah.
And then whenever you start to realize that, if you're in a toxic relationship, whenever you start to realize that you're starting to pick up more slack than she would for you, I guess, if that makes sense, then it starts to become a one-sided relationship. So I'll have days where, I'm not feeling the greatest and I really just don't want an adult. And, my girl has to pick it up. I love her for it.
And I think that's support, right? You support each other in your weakest moments. You guys
Right.
provide each other strength. And that's how it's supposed to be, right? If, the term 50-50 is acting like there is some value, a monetary value to a relationship. And that's a freaking joke.
Making it transactional, which is an absolute
And
mistake.
that's this culture right now. Our culture is transactional, even in relationships. If you watch social media, it's easy to be consumed by it and be like, I agree with it, because I know it's easy for me to I kind of agree with that stuff, but it doesn't mean it's right.
Yeah.
It's not about transactional. It's about selflessness.
If you want it to last, it is.
Yeah. Just like for my kids, I've had two, a 4-year relationship and an 8-year relationship. And I wasn't in love with the first one. Kind of married out of, not going to get in, really there's a lot of weird reasons there. But, I stayed with her because I had kids.
Yeah.
And I would have stayed with her probably till this day, regardless of how I felt. Just because of the duty of how it is. I made that choice under God.
Yeah.
However, I didn't get to make that decision. So, and actually, I appreciate that. Very happy. The second one, it just, the growth didn't grow there. And aligning you need somebody that's willing to grow with you. In every possible way. Faith, love, life. That's what you have to have. There has to be a common goals. And if they're not there, I think that creates issues, because if you're not on the same path, it's very hard to align.
I don't know that it
Spiritually,
has to be
morally.
exactly the same path. You don't have to both be realtors
Well,
trying to get to $1 million a year, but they should at least
well, no.
be.
What I mean is path, and like as family, like it's a group. Just so you know, what's your guys' personal together goals? Your
Sure,
love. You know what I mean? If you know what I mean, like the spiritual goals between you two,
sure.
not really physical goals.
Common goals.
Yeah.
So if one wants to be a hedonist and one wants to be a Puritan, probably not going to work out.
Fair enough.
Yeah. So those are kind of antithetical. I have seen some
Yeah.
weird combinations that work, but I think you got some real truth in that. There should be some significant alignment on the core things. But,
And
different.
it doesn't have to be like that at first, but that conversation needs to be had, and you guys get, because there's so much. You guys being different is part of what is great. But like you said, I think if you don't align morally, if you don't align, hey, I want, my dad had a big issue at the very end with. He said, he didn't. He was a city guy.
Yeah.
He got horses and all this country stuff. He didn't want to do that. He did that strictly for my mother.
Yeah.
And he was miserable.
Yeah.
But he stayed with her. So what's that say, right? You know what I mean? It's one of those things. That's how much he loved and sacrificed for her. That's, in a way that's so honorable. At the same time, it's sad. I don't think you have to you don't have to sacrifice yourself for one person's happiness. It can be both. And I'm not saying mom did anything wrong. That's just what dad did. But in the long run, I believe that it hurt his soul. Because he had dreams and things he wanted to attack. So it's, there's sacrifice, I think, within reason, but I think that the goal is to lift each other up and not to completely succumb to one. That makes sense.
Does. So that kind of goes back to as Christ loved the church, right? So Christ did sacrifice himself for the church, but he didn't change his mission. His mission was fulfilled in what he did. He didn't change who he was. He didn't change what he was doing, but he did give it everything he had.
Yeah.
He had.
Yeah.
And Dylan's out. On that note.
Oh, dude, yeah, oh, he's gone. I think he probably lost signal.
All right. Anything else on Ephesians?
No, I think it, we could literally have a full night about that alone. I think there's so much to it. It is just so much to really touch. I mean, is so many things there.
Relationships are hard.
Yeah.
And, using Christ as your goalpost or your measuring stick, your
Not a
touchstone.
bad way to go.
Not a bad way to go, but it's a really high bar. It's a really high bar.
Yeah, and I mean, and that's the thing, right? I've done the sacrificing to the extent that like my dad did, but learning lessons from dad, understanding that at a certain point, I shouldn't have to sacrifice everything from myself just to keep a person happy.
Well, they're not really happy, buddy. They're just that's the distraction they're using for the time.
Well, and there's the other thing, right? Or they're just comfortable, right? It makes their life easier, and in instance, that's not good either.
Well, you end up if you do that, you end up resenting that person. And then resenting that person, you destroy the relationship, and both of you end up miserable.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing. Like for me, as a single man, 45, dating, it's not a pretty fucking game. It's not fun dating anymore. It's really not. I mean, I quit the dating. I literally got off all apps, all this stuff, just quit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's okay. I mean, it's not a bad thing. I'm good either way. But it was actually more detrimental to my mental and just not depressed, but it's like, man, it was kind of it's kind of the culture has kind of got me mixed up, and I'm like, I'll just let it be organic, or I'll just keep doing what I'm doing. You
No,
know what I mean?
honestly,
I'm
man,
like,
finding
I don't
somebody
know any other
while
way.
you're being you is probably going to be way healthier and way better match than finding somebody.
I don't know any other
While
way.
you're being you is probably going to be way healthier and way better match than finding somebody out there seeking beating the bushes.
Well, yeah, man, because the hookup culture is insane.
Yeah, it's out of control.
And it's to me, it's like, dude, I've already done all that. You know what I mean? I'm good, bro. I don't. It's not. That's not a critical part of what I'm looking for. I'm no different. I'm a man.
Sure.
And I mean, I have opportunity, and I got phones, so I can pick up the phone right now and go have some fun. But it's like that's not the end all be all anymore.
No. Get a little older, get a little wiser.
A little more cynical.
Well, that kind of leads right into expectations. So in life and in relationships, we all have expectations, founded or unfounded. Those expectations come from society. They come from our upbringing, our circle of influence, which is music, television, social media, our friends, our family, our community, the people that we spend time with. And those expectations can be useful and they can be extremely detrimental.
Yeah.
In relationships and physical health and mental health, a lot of our expectations are silly. In physical health, we look on social media and we see guys like Sam Sulik or some of these other guys that spend a lot of their time and dedicate their lives to a physique and an outcome, and we get really disappointed when we aren't able to meet that expectation in 1 month at the gym. The expectation
Right.
of 1 month at the gym achieving that is ridiculous, and it's a bad expectation that sets you up for failure. The same thing is true in relationships. We have women get Disney ideas about relationships, and men get those aren't met. We're very disappointed. Expectations in life. We're told when we were kids, at least in my generation, that you're going to go to school and you're going to learn, and you're going to go to school and you're going to learn, and you're going to graduate and you're going to get a company or get a job with a good company, and you're going to work there your whole life and work hard and climb the corporate ladder and do really well and get paid well and have a good life and retire. Well, that's wrong. Those expectations were completely false. In the current generation, you go to college and graduate and get out of college and immediately make 150K. That expectation is false. You were sold lies, and because of those expectations that you have, a lot of people end up in depression. We see people on social media out there living their best lives. Very often it's fake, and you no longer have the purview of a few hundred people in your community. You have the purview of the entire globe. You feel bad about yourself. You have weird expectations about what your life should be. Not understanding that either that person got extremely lucky, was born into it, or they worked very, very hard over a long period of time to accomplish that. Either way, the expectations are false, and because of those false expectations, we perceive ourselves to be suffering. And in the perception of suffering, and the perception of suffering often leads to depression, and then compensation for depression and a downward spiral. Buddha said that Buddha said that
Yeah, I just love it.
Buddha said that the lack of desire can lead to joy. When you give up all your worldly desires, you can find joy, peace, and enlightenment. Or attaining or collecting certain things in life can be extremely detrimental, physically, mentally, emotionally, and we get ourselves into quite a bit of trouble. Let's get into instead of just a postulation and waxing philosophic. Expectations. Managing personal and external expectations. Expectations play a significant role in shaping our actions and responses to life's challenges. Whether self-imposed or influenced by others, expectations can serve as motivators or sources of stress. Influenced by others, Expectations can serve as motivators or sources of stress. This section explores how to identify, manage, and align personal and external expectations in a way that fosters success and personal well-being. Identifying personal expectations. Personal expectations often stem from our goals, our expectations. Start by identifying what you expect from yourself in different areas of your life. Your career, your relationships, and your personal growth, etc. Life. Your career, your relationships, and your personal growth, etc. Are these expectations aligned with your values and purpose, or are they influenced by external factors? This is a huge one.
Oof.
Yeah.
Well, there's so much to bite off on this one, man.
Yeah.
Because the expectations, here's the funny thing about expectations. So I don't necessarily, okay, if you have a goal, it's the ultimate goal, and what your, expectation can be perspective of expectation in a sense.
Really?
Because, it's funny, like
Really?
because it's funny, like my expectations for where I end up is I don't know, but I know that I'm building a rocket ship and I'm going to try to hit the moon with it. And but I'm going to see how high I can fucking go, and if I don't hit the moon, at least I went up. Right? At least I
orbit.
tried.
Yeah, man. You got a direction.
The old saying, media stuff that you brought up, brother. That is such a thing, because I see it and it motivates me, but I also take things just kind of like I was talking with my CEO, reading the email, not getting emotional about it, then taking it from perspective and understanding and breaking things down. This is something in our culture, in our time, in modernization, the instant gratification that comes.
Phew.
We do not take the time to digest. If you see that person, oh, I'm on the boat, just 18-year-old girl, I'm on this big boat, and she's trying to be banged by how many millionaires right now, who as soon as they're done with her are going to throw her off that boat, and she's going to be trying to find another millionaire. Does that sound like that's fulfillment to you?
Oh, it sounds good at the time. It goes back to short-term versus long-term gratification, right?
Right.
They're
but does that make you happy in the long run?
No.
Right. Does that give a person a sense of fulfillment? No. It sounds like pretty damn depressing to me.
It's really self-destructive.
Person a sense of fulfillment. No. It sounds like pretty damn depressing to me.
It's really self-destructive.
It really is, and this is the problem, is we haven't taught our kids, man, and we're not, well, we haven't just take a step back and look at the world and digest it. I mean, from everything going on, that's our problem right now, and this is a technology issue. Technology has created this. 10-second clips can that. I can't be happy like that person. Man, what a miserable, when really you don't even know what real happiness is.
Also, I think that's a super important thing to dig into, right? So,
yeah.
Or are they influenced by external factors? So not only are we measuring ourselves against an Instagram reel, a lot of people are doing what they think they're supposed to do, having never truly considered it. So they're doing the job that their dad did, or they're doing the job that their community does, or they're doing whatever was easy and convenient. They're doing what's in the neighborhood. They're not spending the time to understand who they are and what they want, what their strengths and values are, what their weaknesses. Doing a SWOT assessment on yourself. Strengths, what weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, right? By not understanding what your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats are, but not understanding who you are, what you want, what your values and principles are, what your goals are, you allow yourself, this is a lot like the habits conversation, right? Which is why we had it when we did. You start building these habits of behavior that don't serve you. You build the habits of behavior by default instead of on purpose, because you haven't taken the time to understand who you are and what you want, what's important to you, and what means something to you. So, and a lot of that's because of what we perceive as the expectations mean something to you. So,
Yeah.
and a lot of that's because of what we perceive as the expectations put on us by other people. I know so many kids that went to law school and medical school and they hate their lives. Office and as an accountant in every role you can imagine that are there because that was the expectation put on them, or that's what the expectation they perceived was put on them. They never took the time to understand who they are, what they want, what they're good at, and they're just doing life because they think that's what they're supposed to do. A lot of those people, having gone down that road, they get to their late 20s and they realize that they're miserable and they don't see a way out of it. And in not seeing a way out of it, they start down the spiral of depression and sometimes even worse.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the other thing, right? I think there's some good in a lot of the media pushback about, hey, grind now, and we talk about it. But I think
Yeah.
and that purpose maybe ultimately, I hate to say money because money is just a tool. I always say that, but what is your purpose and goal? It's like, oh, I want a Lamborghini. Well, do you really want the Lamborghini, or do you want the lifestyle? What's the actual purpose? Because I don't think it's just material. We want to feel if you're learning and you're feeling accomplished, that's pretty good. Building a legacy, learning to understand what your ultimate goals are, and then counting the wins, counting the failures. And plenty of failures, but every time I fail, I learn. Every time I'm learning, you know what I mean, I fail. And that's all part of that process. So I think that there's almost a loss of hope, because I think we have a generation that has no direction anymore.
Facts. Part of the reason I'm building Game Off a Pie, dude, and it's not just this generation, it's our generation and even our parents.
Yeah.
They don't know what their values are and they don't know what their purpose is. They're doing the job that their parents told them to do and what was expected of them. And we were expected to do the job we were told to do and what was expected of us. And we're teaching our kids to do the same. And the farther down the ladder we go, the farther down the ladder we go. It's a downward spiral.
Humans are meant to evolve.
Yeah. We talked about it last week. Our nation is a manifestation of our individual states, our collective individual states, right? And as we are individuals without values, principle, and purpose, we have become a nation without values and principle and purpose. It's reflected in the people that we elect. It's reflected in and then taking the time and doing the work, to nail down their values, principles, and purpose, and thereby direction. From that, you start building the rest of your life.
Yep. And then that's what I think. I think one of the things that we're struggling with is humanity. And I think this is a human issue. I mean, on a global scale, I think this is a world issue. This isn't just an American issue. We're in a precipice. We're starting to get where life's getting easier, right? Life's getting very easy. Our lifespans are expanding. We're not having to die as much to accomplish the same shit we accomplished 60 years ago, right? Lot less stress. So on physical stress, right? We knew we had to get it done. There was world wars. There was, people were starved. We had to, it was challenging. It was very challenging. Now, as we progress to where everything's being done for us, automation, the ease of information, all this, the human psyche in my mind is struggling with what's the hope. Like before, it was like, let's build the city, build the family, let's build the industrial you know what I mean. We all had a purpose and goal as a nations, as a globe, in how we're trying to build our communities, cities, and countries. Well, now, what is the purpose other than work? If you were working at the steel mill, you were working to support the United States and help build military aircraft or some purpose, right? Now working to just pay your bills,
Make some
barely,
jerk money.
is not a purpose.
It's not a purpose. So
it's not even survivable.
It's barely survival. And I think what you're saying is extremely salient. So there's an axiom Hard times create strong men create good times create weak men create hard times. And
There you go. Yeah.
it's the cycle of empires, right?
Mhm.
So all the way down on the front of the coin where the hand is, I got the 10 biggest empires in human history, and they all end pretty much the same way in corruption in human history, and they all end pretty much the same way in corruption and despotism. And generally, once they get weak from corruption and despotism, they're crushed by the next rising folks. Generally, they held in some kind of contempt and oppression for years, creating their hard times, which created their strong men, that created their good times. Generally, at the expense of the folks that ran through their despotism phase. As you said, things have gotten so easy that we've lost focus. And in losing focus and not having a challenge or a common aspiration, we've started complaining. We complain about capitalism from our $1,000 iPhones. We complain about living conditions. We complain about everything. And we're doing a lot of complaining, not only is it cultural, but it's because we don't really have anything to do. Because we've lost our purpose, because we've lost our focus.
No purpose.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because we've lost our aspiration. The great challenge in the hard times gives common aspiration. Common aspiration being overcoming the hard times, the oppression, the starvation, the whatever significant challenge faces the civilization. That common aspiration, coupled with strong people, not just strong men, strong people. It takes strong men and strong women to get through it.
It does.
Yeah.
It takes a community.
It takes strong communities. That's right, which are constituted by strong men and strong women, across generations. But for our conversation, dealing with just men, I'm not going to try and pretend that I know what it means or takes to be a woman or a strong woman.
Right.
For our conversation, being strong men, having lost our aspiration, having lost our challenge, the massive rate of shift, and as you said, technology, right? So technology is changing far faster than our societal or evolutional or intellectual or emotional ability to adapt to it. Historically, in the Industrial Revolution, the Agricultural Revolution, etc., we had more time. There were 100-year timescales. There were multi-generational timescales. Things are changing within 4 years, 5 years, 3 years, 1 year, 30 days, 90 days. It's faster than we can learn or adapt as a group. And not being able to learn or adapt as a group, we're maladapting as groups. So not only have we lost our aspiration, our principles, and our values, and our purpose, we've got all these exacerbating situations on top of it. There is a way through it, but that way through it is not easy. And it's going to require, like we talked about earlier, breaking down some of the silos of ideology and working towards common aspirations again, learning how to talk again, understanding what our values and principles are as individuals, and then agreeing to a set of values and principles as a collective, and then building a common aspiration built on those. Just like the individual has to develop their core individual principles and values and purpose, the collective, the group, the community, the society has to do the same. And neither is easy, but it starts with the individual.
Yeah. Well, and I think that, we're in a global society now. And I think this is where, I was talking about this week to people because, it is right now, I think that, some of the politics that's going, it is right now, I think that, some of the politics that's going on is a lack of societal awareness that we are a global community. We are no longer really nations. The only people that right now really, really focus on nations are communists and the people with money and power.
Ideologues and those in power, yeah.
That's it. The rest of the global community, I deal with folks in the UK all the time. I deal with folks in India. I deal with folks all over the world.
Yep.
All over the world. And I have some of the best relationships and met some of the most wonderful people from all over the globe that I don't care if they were from Chicago or Europe or UK. Or Singapore or Philippines
or Russia or China.
It wouldn't matter. Yeah, it wouldn't matter. The only thing that matters is our geopolitical, economic, and all that is money and power. But somebody's going to drive a single world dollar. But somebody's going to drive a single world dollar.
So.
But somebody's going to drive a single world dollar.
So.
Potentially. Or the start of it.
I think you're absolutely right. I think a global and not
like I said, sorry. Go ahead.
And not understanding how to deal with megalomaniacs and jerks. Should we go to a singular currency or a singular?
I know. Well, like I said, here we go. We go into this philosophy style of how this would all work. I don't know, and whatever
authority would give us some benefit, but we've got a lot of growing up to do as a species. I think before we're quite ready for that. At this point, we're still greedy, angry monkeys.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. The reason I brought up the global stuff and I kind of stirred it to this point is the hopes and aspirations have to go beyond the borders and have to go beyond these geopolitics and, we got a bad trade deal. We have to start preparing ourselves to think. I said this before. There was a saying from one of the astronauts that was on the that flew around the moon. And he looked out the window and saw the moon and saw the Earth from the moon and said, you want to fly down there, take the politician who's running his mouth and take him to the moon and say, look at that. Look what we're doing to this thing. And look at what we're doing to our people and how small we really are and what, we're all here.
Yeah.
And he's like, and I just want to grab him by the neck, basically, and make him look at this thing and say, it makes you appreciate so much more when you can realize how small we really are.
Well, that goes back to values, principles, and purpose of the individual, the community, the society, the civilization, and the world. If we can come up with, so we have an aspiration of the other as a world for common aspirations, things like ending world hunger, which, if you look at it, we piss away more than that every year. It's staggering. Right. Homelessness, education, ridiculous. Hunger. These are all problems that are incredibly solvable by 8.5 billion people. And should we work together on a common goal or a handful of common goals, the outcome for humanity would be staggeringly positive. But we've got some growing up to do. We've got some growing up to do. And it starts with the individual.
Some? Yeah, it really does. Well, it starts with the individual. But it also starts with re-educating part of American and world politics in general. Exact roots. I mean, you can see it's the tumor. You can see it.
Greed and the lust for power, the love of money.
So ignorant. Here's 5. I'll send 5 links to him. Like, read this and tell me I'm wrong. They're looking for that hope. Right? They're looking for that hope. Right? They're looking for
people groups. Ideology has been
100%
with identity. So you become part of an ideological tribe, and that tribe becomes your sense of security. And that tribe's set of ideology and or facts becomes your worldview. And because it's your tribe and your personal identity, people are reticent, even with the most ridiculous cognitive bias existent. And like you said, this is true on both sides. You can literally see the thing happening in front of you, but because it's against your identity or against your tribe or your ideology, which all three are roughly the same thing at this point psychologically, people are not willing to break the cognitive dissonance to employ critical thinking, which most people don't know what critical thinking is truly. Most people have never actually thought in their lives, but they don't.
No, they're bots.
They've never been exposed to it. They were trained by the schools, set the rules and set the boxes. Have told them this, so that's what they do. It's a
vicious cycle, really.
It's a vicious cycle, but you can't get mad at the individual, right?
Never.
You can drown a horse in the trough, but you can't make them drink. You can love them, and you can show them the truth. Sometimes they'll take it, sometimes they won't. But if you do it in love, they won't be as combative. They won't feel as attacked, and if they don't feel attacked, they may consider it. And in consideration, they may wake up, maybe. But if you come
I agree.
If you come at them with an attack, the probability of them accepting it is probably zero. It's only 3% of the population thinks logically. Only 3%.
That's true. Well, and that's crazy. It's funny you mentioned that because I was telling somebody, my coordinator, this weekend or this last week, we were out in Philly, and she leans pretty far one direction. You know what I mean? And we were having these conversations, and when I bring up certain stuff, and I know that certain things will aggravate her,
Sure.
to say the least, right? The very much a reactionary type person, and it's okay. It's, that's just how that's how it is these days, right? Blaine, let me finish what I'm saying before you react, and I'll, just like that, right? And I'll, just like that, right? Just that very calm. This is my opinion. This is what I'm thinking. Da 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 da. And we still took her back from the ledge. Went back into the conversation, right? If you want to pursue, and this is it, we cannot attack people for their beliefs because their pride and their feelings, that's how people react.
Like
so you can tell them like, hey, and I don't, for the most part, I don't attack people for the most part. Now, sometimes I'm like, great, I'll be like, great, you that's pretty stupid, dude, for real. I love you, bro, but honestly, come on, man. But, but for the most part, if you're really trying to convince somebody, it's not attacking them, it's love, like you said, being steady and delivering facts. Now, whether they drink the water, you can lead the horse to water, but you can't make it drink. But if you continue to lead the horse to water, eventually it's going to get thirsty.
Maybe.
So that's the way I look at it. So you got to hit them with love, hit them with facts, and be steady. Do not play the game that everybody else is playing. And it's amazing. And it's like escaping the Matrix. It really is. Take the blue or red pill, man. I don't know. It's very interesting. That's why people are telling me I should run for office because I can kind of I can pretty much get anyone to listen to me at least without yelling at me.
Well, this actually kind of goes along with expectations, in as much as
yeah.
Well, this actually kind of goes along with expectations, in as much as their expectations of a situation or a set of circumstances, or your reaction there to a series of expectations built around position and what they perceive as the antithetical or argumentative or attacking position. And those expectations frame the entire conversation, which make it very hard for both sides to talk.
Yeah.
Because they
expect... and I think... Oh, keep going. Sorry, I didn't know there was a pause.
All right, man. They expect an attack. They expect lies. They expect the other side to not know what the truth is. And they expect that the other side is just ignorant, or they don't care, or they're cold, or they're stupid, or whatever. But those expectations prevent real conversation and from us hearing each other.
Yeah. And I think that's why when you're not like they expect consistently, that's how we get through to people, right? But that also has to do with being, and even though I know, I probably didn't mind I definitely am going to give them something to consider because it's not an argument, it's a conversation.
Well, if the point of the conversation is progress and not winning, you can do something.
Yeah, you know, once again, listen to understand, not listen to respond.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, once again, that's it's so funny that almost all of our prior conversations, meetings, all still lead to one another. They are all connected.
There's a reason there's 360 degrees on the coin, brother.
Yes, yes, sir, yes, sir.
It's a circle.
How many of those coins do you have, by the way?
I have 90 left. 91, including the one that I'm claiming for mine.
Okay, well, make that 90. I'm claiming one as well. And I will be getting one of those soon. I really, really love the design and work. I think the really love the design and work. I think the symbology, everything on it is truly amazing. You know, like I said, I think it's not something we're going to solve for today,
No.
but
It's something to work towards.
I do believe, yeah, it's something to aspire to.
Yeah, man. A common aspiration, making the world a little bit better. Heck yeah. Let's do that.
And that, you know, and that's why I think this is super important. And that, you know, and that's why I think this is super important. And, you know, I think that as these conversations grow, we need more people having these conversations. It needs to be the movement.
Yeah, man.
You know, it has to be.
Start a whole ass fraternity about it.
Yeah, it has to be the movement. What we're talking about, because masculinity, for all this other different
fitness
stuff,
and all kinds of things.
Yeah. Let's come together as one, and if we all have a common goal, which is be a decent human being, strive for being the greatest person and help one another, imagine the society we could build. It would be on Mars right now if we were all united. Think about it. You get 6 guys together, and amazing things can happen. Imagine if you could put 6 billion together.
So my vision for this is 10 million men. And the idea is if I can get 10 million men, which is a fraction of 1%, to inculcate this culture, which isn't anything wild, man. It's essentially just biblical principles overlaid with historical and philosophical. I mean, it's hard to say facts,
right.
But truisms.
Yeah,
things that have been proven true over a long
right.
period of
Truisms. There you go. I love it. All right.
Yeah,
It's
not a radical culture whatsoever. But if I can get 10 million men to start living this way and treating with other people with love. That's why it's at the bottom of the triangle. To build themselves up mentally, emotionally, physically, financially, to be strong, and to have vision and teach others to do the same. That's it's literally the vision, dude. It's literally, it would literally, if we had 10 million men that loved themselves, loved each other, and honored their responsibility as men to their communities and and their families.
It's powerful.
Yeah. Yeah.
How powerful is that?
Yeah, it would literally change the world. It would literally change the world.
This world doesn't exist. This world doesn't exist without them too.
No, they're literally our other half.
Absolutely. But men are the ones that take action. Men build societies through our fortitude, and we're built to do this. We're supposed to, and that's why men are hurting right now, because men are built for purpose.
Preach.
We're not built to exist. No. Women are built for purpose.
Yeah.
People are built for purpose. There's a reason we invent. There's a reason we want to go to Mars. There's a reason we want to understand the genome. There's a reason we want to study particle physics. People in general need a purpose.
Facts.
So we need to start realizing our purpose first is a better society. And the better our society grows, the better our entire world grows.
Facts.
We need a better, that's it.
Values,
and it's, you know,
principles,
there's hope.
Purpose.
And there's lots of hope because we have our children, and it starts with you teaching your child, me teaching my child, my children, what purpose is.
Yep.
And keeping them humble and understanding from the flaws. And I do believe, even though millennials and these kids, they do get some issues, I don't believe it's not sustainable. And I also see a lot of people hurting, trying to find that way, and my daughter being one of them. But they're also reaching out and looking. They're looking for an answer. We need to provide those answers, the right ones. There's a lot of noise.
Yeah, man. White son, brother, father. It's generational. Gamma Alpha Pi. Eos Adelphos Patera, son, brother, father. It's generational.
Yes.
This came out of looking at all of these things, man, and it was like, okay, all of these symptoms, where do they come from? And I kept digging and digging and digging and digging and adding more symptoms and digging and digging.
Yeah.
When I came to the vector origin, I started then engineering backwards. How do we fix it? Yeah, this is it's nothing new. It's the same stuff that the Sumerians had and then lost, and the Egyptians had and then lost, and the Spaniards had and then lost, and the English had and then lost, and the Romans had and then lost, and the Mayans had and then lost, and the Chinese had and lost.
Yeah.
Civilization
100%.
after civilization, generation upon generation.
There's a sense of self, especially in especially in this day and age. Everything it's so, social media, right? I mean, you have social media, and I really believe social media helps you lose oneself. It does not, social media allows you to see and peer from someone's perspective. Social media allows you to see and peer from someone's perspective that they want you to see. And it's like I said, once again, it's easy to get lost in their reality because you don't want to face yours. When what you don't realize is your reality is your own, and you can make it whatever you want to be. You've got 100 years on this earth. Let's say 80 years, be realistic. 60 quality, easy to make your impact and mark. You just have to realize it's not now. It's every day and minute, little things you do.
The habits.
The little habits, what is your vision? Well, I want to make a difference. Well, what do where do you want to make a difference? I don't know. Well, start trying different things. That's the great thing about it, man, is you can just go, then especially in today's world, you can do whatever the hell you want. If you don't have children, if you're young, now is the time, man, to go like we were talking to Dylan. We're not meant to go get a job. Not meant to go get a job and work away for somebody else. And that's the end of it. And have kids and a white picket fence. I mean, that's the dream they sold in the 60s because they needed people to go to work and get a pension for building cars and guns.
Life is we kind of all start on a meadow in the context of Mount Everest, a crevasse. But whether you have to climb out of the crevasse, or not, part of our mission is to climb that mountain of our life, right? To have the aspiration to get to the top. And once you get to the top, you have to learn to fly. A lot of us get lost in the crevasse. A lot of us both. The journey is it.
Yeah.
Once you find your values and purpose and principles, you'll find that they change over time. Again, part of the reason is son, brother, father. As a son, your values and purpose and principles will align long term, but short term with becoming an individual, understanding who you are. As a brother, as a mature man before you're a father, in the fullness of who you are, and serving the people around you, having enough strength to give As a father, your focus shifts from giving generally to giving extremely specifically and guiding others through that same journey. After you're a father, and I know most of my friends are old men. After you're a father, they tend to focus on their career, and when their career is over, they become extremely lost. I don't think the career is the end-all be-all. Career is over, they become extremely lost. I don't think the career is the end-all be-all. I think the career is part of the path as well. It's just part of the mountain. At some point, you have to create your own. Not everyone. Some people will work a series of jobs and take care of their family and be extremely happy and completely fulfilled. And there is absolutely nothing wrong with that. If that's
okay.
Because that is our purpose. Because that is our purpose. But it changed because that is our purpose. But it changes and life evolves. So I'm trying to figure out a metaphor for that so I can better line. Yeah. So that's what I said. That's what I said. If the expectations placed upon you by your community or family is just an unreasonably good father and dad, and husband. It's an incredible thing, and it's not something to be looked down on.
No.
And currently, if somebody just expects unrealistic expectations, I'm going to make $10 million. I'm going to make $10 million in 3 days. Is it possible? Yeah, it's possible.
Is it likely?
$1 million in 3 days. There are a lot of people that can do it, and there's a lot of $1 million in 3 days. There are a lot of people that can do it, and there's a lot of people that can teach you to do it. It is very $1 million in 3 days. There are a lot of people that can do it, and there's a lot of people that can teach you to do it. It is very possible. But you're not doing it on a day, week. You haven't built the habits, you haven't built the network, you haven't built the skills. You haven't built the skills necessary to do that. You haven't built the skills necessary to do that. And expecting yourself to do it without the habits, skills, network, and time horizons is unrealistic. So make sure your expectations are realistic and you understand. So make sure your expectations are realistic and you understand what the expectation is of yourself. Make sure the expectation isn't just an external pressure. Journey extensively in the books as our journeys as individuals. The call to adventure. You go off in the adventure. You meet a mentor. You find the treasure, the elixir, and the treasure. Gray-haired, a gray beard. It's going to be extreme wisdom. Gray-haired, a gray beard. It's going to be extreme wisdom. But yeah, the hero's journey. It's going to be extreme wisdom. But yeah, the hero's journey.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think you got, obviously look within yourself. If you're young, I don't think you should have any expectations when you're young other than you're trying to find it. Once you find it, then you can set realistic expectations. I think part of the problem is if you're still not sure what or who you want to be, then why do you have any expectations whatsoever?
Well,
your expectation should be to learn.
Well, understand who you are.
I mean, yeah, I mean, understand who you are, but it's one of those things where, I guess you could be born with expectations. My son, excellent student, has high expectations because of his grades and has an offer to go to, Duke had been interested in him, all these other things. And he has these expectations. Yeah, I expect you to do great, but it doesn't mean I expect you to go to Duke as you're happy. That's the main expectation I have. You're happy. That's the main expectation I have. Are you fulfilled? I think there's so much heavy expectations either put on people from money or no expectations on people because they didn't come from money, right? So poor folks grow up in the hood and ghettos. There's no expectation.
Well, there's actually
the only expectation is. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
there's
There's
actually
what?
negative expectations.
Well, there you go. Yeah, correct. But that's what I mean is there's no positive. Either way, there's not really an expectation. There's only an expectation that you are what your environment, right? I guess there is an expectation, but nobody gets to decide that but you. And they can have their expectations, but it's really what you're doing because what your thoughts are, what you conceive in yourself. I think expectations is very broad. Hey, an expectation. You don't have an expectation to graduate high school, but that's your goal. You are going to graduate high school. That's not an expectation. It's a goal. I don't know. It's such a weird. Give me the term. What's the actual definition of expectation?
I can find. Hey Jamie, pull up
I'm
the
thinking of a better
Webster's
definition.
definition of expectations.
Kind of.
To provide a clear
Well, I think there
definition
could
of
be multiple
expectation, expectation encompasses these key ideas. It's anticipation. It is the act of looking forward to something, whether it is an event, an outcome of the future.
Right. That's an expectation. Right. That's a goal. That's a goal also. Right. That's a goal also. Right. I think that I try not to have expectations. I have results. I have results from actions in my personal life, right? I don't expect nothing, but I know that these actions can create results, which would be an expectation, I guess. You had to be right. I don't know. You see what I'm getting at here? It's almost a loop to me.
It is. It's a feedback loop. A lot of people don't perceive it as a feedback loop. They perceive them as certainties instead of directions or outcomes from activities. It's like a factory, right? So the expectation is at the end of the factory line they're going to have a cookie, but they don't do anything at the front side of the factory. The machines aren't running. There's no ingredients. There's no sugar. There's no flour. There's no water. And then they stand at the end of the assembly line and they're like, "Why are there no cookies?" So we're already pushing on 9 o'clock. I'm going to speed up a little bit here. 9 o'clock. I'm going to speed up a little bit here.
All right.
Learning how to manage external pressures involves setting clear boundaries with others and staying true to your core beliefs and values. Realistic versus unrealistic expectations. It's important to distinguish between expectations that are attained and those that are unrealistic. Assessing feasibility. Ask yourself whether the expectations you have, whether self-imposed or external, are realistic given the resources, time, and energy you have. Unrealistic expectations can be demotivating and lead to feelings of inadequacy. Adjusting expectations. If you find your expectations are consistently out of reach, considering recalibrating them. Adjusting expectations can be more realistic, not only increases your chances of success, but also prevents unnecessary stress. Something that is super important is setting expectations that you can attain regularly, so you have lots of little goals. Massively important for mental health, massively important for mental health, massively important for momentum and velocity.
Oh, 100%.
Communicate expectations clearly. I think this is one of the things that gets a whole lot of people in trouble in relationships and professionally. Misunderstanding about expectations can create frustration and confusion, both personally and in relationships with others. Clear communication helps ensure that everyone is on the same page. Open conversations, and this is even internally with yourself. Be clear with yourself. Noscite ipsum is a long thing, and it's a long thing for a reason. You have to be clear. Open conversations, whether in the workplace or within your family or in a romantic relationship. Openly communicate your expectations. Professional setting, have you been up against that one?
All the time. I get told no a lot.
Well, in sales,
yeah, sorry. Go on sales.
in sales, the antithesis is true, right? So the VP will be in like, we're gonna do 50 million this year. We did 3 million last year, boss.
Yeah. Yeah.
What else is going to change? How are we going to get to 50 million? Do we have the supply chain to get to 50 million? No. Are we going to have 10 times more salespeople? No. Are we going to 10x our marketing budget? No. Then why would you think we'd get to 50 million?
Exactly. Well, they're setting the expectation, right? The
Yeah.
realistic expectation. You know, like I think that's it. I mean, the fact is, you know, you just have to. I think the key is those little wins. You know, you set up for yourself. Well, what's the expectation? Well, my expectation first, I set up on myself to take the actions to achieve the greater expectation, right? Once
like
again, the micro habits.
Habits, macro habits, micro expectations,
Yeah, all those.
macro expectations.
Yeah, all those things. Taking action, little actions, day in and day out. You know, and I think also being realistic. Like I said, I think that's realistic. Well, I have to give him some of that consideration that he understands we meet expectations for a customer. That's his job. If he doesn't feel we can, then even though I don't like hearing no, sometimes it's for my own good because I'll take everything.
Yeah. Setting expectations with the customer is really friggin' important.
Yes.
Really friggin' important.
Yeah. 100% important.
Yep.
Because they won't be a customer for long if you don't set the right expectation.
Yeah. Or you let them have unrealistic expectations.
Yeah.
Setting realistic goals that align with both your personal values and your external realities are crucial for success. Both your personal values and your external realities are crucial for success. The more aligned your goals are with your capabilities and resources, the more likely you are to achieve them. SMART goals. Ensure your goals are specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. When setting goals, always assess whether these are realistic given your current situation. Gradual progress. Focus on setting small incremental goals that can be achieved within a short time frame. This approach builds momentum and reduces overwhelm of larger long-term goals. Dealing with disappointment. This is one of the biggest ones. I've got a whole section on failure later on, just because the ridiculous expectations we carry around that.
Oof, yeah.
Not all expectations will be met, and sometimes things won't go according to plan. How you handle disappointment is key to maintaining emotional resilience and moving forward. We've got a project right now. A customer wanted done by March 5th because there's some rare bird flying back into this bird sanctuary. It has been raining nonstop, and it's a dirt project. Can't get trucks in.
Good luck with that.
Yeah, can't get dirt out because it's raining nonstop, and it's a dirt project. Can't get trucks in.
Good luck with that.
Yeah, can't get dirt out because it's mud. They are less than pleased. But keep trying to explain to them that the bird use disappointment as an opportunity for reflection. What can you learn from the experience? How can you adjust your expectations? You're not trying hard enough. So it's part of the growth. You have a lot of not trying hard enough. So it's part of the growth. You have a lot of expectations.
Fail forward is one.
Fail forward, yeah. You have a lot of expectations about how things will go, how things will work, and until you try it, you don't really know for sure. Even if you've done it before in life, and if things aren't working in a relationship, have the courage to have the hard conversation. It's going to be uncomfortable, and especially when you're young, the probability of it ending more and more trust, which helps get you through disagreements faster and faster and faster. More and more trust, which helps get you through disagreements faster and faster and faster. But that only comes from, that doesn't work, I need to do something different. And keep trying until you figure out what does work. Until you can do a double or a shingle shoot and pull it off repeatedly with success. Then you learn a new skill. Moving on. You ever had a disappointment that you needed to reframe, Steve?
Many. I mean, yeah, man. There's always many. There's disappointing times where. I mean, yeah, man. There's always many. there's disappointing times where, whether it's in business, business do is figure out, did you make a mistake? Okay, great, we made a mistake. Great, we made a mistake. Assess that mistake. How do I not do it again?
Only do it so many times. Below average people that struggle won't run at the wall at all because it might hurt.
To get through that wall, and at some point you will. As long to get through that wall, and at some point you will. As long as you take the right tactic.
That kind of comes back.
As long as you take the right tactic.
That kind of comes back to confidence from last week, right? So self-confidence.
Oh, yeah.
Knowing that you have the resources or the perseverance or the combination thereof, whether it be fortitudinal or intellectual or whatever your resource may be, but the hundreds of hours, if not thousands of hours of how to do it, most of it's malarkey. To find out what they're done is somebody made $1 million somewhere else or multiple $1 million, and they just threw a shit ton of money at it until it stuck. They're not, a lot of fake gurus out there in the world. But
yes, there are.
Instead of looking at videos that don't break 1,000 or 10,000 as an abject failure, okay, what did I learn this time? Where did they drop off this time? What resonated? What didn't? How can I improve? What's the difference between this one and that one? How are mine different than the people in this space that are succeeding? Just keep going. False expectation. Can I make the next video more successful than this one? Possibly. Sometimes I make banger videos and I don't change anything and they just don't go anywhere. I make banger videos and I don't change anything and they just don't go anywhere. For whatever reason, there's the people that like it aren't watching today or whatever, and they don't get the initial traction.
10 seconds, but I had 20 of them watch this for, 20, I'm sorry, I had 20 of them watch this for 10 seconds, but I had 100 of them watch it for 3.
That's right.
What's that tell you?
That's right.
Right? Like,
Yeah. Well, the same was true when I was learning to engineer fiber optic cable, right? Right? So what works in the drawing workflow and what doesn't work in the drawing doesn't. How people respond. You have to learn to deal with different mentalities and personalities and motivators and even once you was not reflecting on you at all, it's a manifestation of their internal state. That you have very little to deal with. Then you learn if you can help them deal with that, your relationship is going to be much, much better. Their life gets better, your life gets better, everybody's life gets better.
Instead of being reactionary, understand.
Yeah. Listen to understand, not to respond.
Yeah.
Use disappointment as an opportunity for reflection and growth.
Yes. And it's okay. And being disappointed motivates me personally. If I'm disappointed in myself, especially, like I make a mistake, and of course, we're human. We all make mistakes, and I accept that. But when I make a mistake, I'll reflect on things I've said in front of my kids. Yeah, I know we talked about this before. Me and you have.
Yeah.
And Aaron has. Actually, we had a conversation a few weeks ago kind of talking about this. Hell, a month ago. And that's the thing. So a lot of people will take disappointment as depression. They get depressed. No, this is a chance to learn. And then that's I think the key to fighting it. And I don't know, like I said, once again, I don't understand depression, but it's changing that mental makeup. But when I feel like, oh, I screwed up and beating yourself up. No, I made a mistake, but you know what? Now I know I won't do it again. Because we're allowed to make mistakes. We're allowed to be disappointed. We're allowed to be sad. We're allowed to be sad. But it's what we do after the fact, right? It's all about what actions you take upon realizing you're disappointed. And also, I think a short memory. Disappointed, I accept it.
And depression is rumination. So you get stuck in a mental loop, a self-destructive mental loop, replaying all the failures and all the shortcomings and all the missed
negative.
Yep, all the missed expectations.
Okay.
You didn't have the Disney relationship. You didn't have the American dream life. You didn't have this promotion or that deal or this whatever. Every perceived failure, every perceived slight, every perceived shortcoming, and you just roll around in it. It's a downward spiral. And you get stuck in that loop and roll in that circle over and over and over. And every rotation that you make rolling around in it is another brick in the wall of a prison you're building in your own mind. Some people get down there and they build a prison wall so high and so thick they don't get out. And they lose sight of the very things around them in a prison they've built themselves. As harsh as that sounds, I can say it with some authority as I've been there more than once. I've built a prison and torn down the walls more than once. And it's not to say that everyone is there. Some people are there chemically, or they're there biomechanically. Got something going on biologically or mechanically in their mind that is part of the prison. But a lot of it, most of it is a shortcoming of expectations. And in the shortcoming of expectations, rumination. And between rumination and the shortcoming of expectations, you build a prison for yourself. Which is really quite tragic. It
really is.
No one teaches us about it. No one talks about it. No one talks about how to get out of it. It's super common. And as we talked about earlier with the external expectations presented on social media that we're not really psychologically or emotionally adapted to, getting easier and easier to build those walls.
Right.
Every 15 to 20 minutes by 2023. Every 15 to 20 minutes by 2023. It was one every 10 minutes. By 2024, it was one every 5 minutes. In 2023, it was one every 5 minutes. Back that up 1 year. And in 2024, depending on who you asked, it was one every 2 minutes to every 30 seconds. Men making the last choice. Large men making the last choice. Largely because they found themselves in a wall based on false expectations of themselves and those set by others.
And it's really tragic because I think that, a societal loop, where, like I said, I think the lack of purpose, and I think that this has to do with figuring out, and I think this has to do with schools too.
Does
is giving kids like this is our goal and purpose. We're not just we want a society of engineers and people to foster the future betterment of society, to take over the globe, to be the best, because we're not the best, we want to be the best, and to be the best we need everybody. Now I'm not saying that's going to stop some of the societal issues, human goals, our species goals, our country goal. I don't know what that is. I don't know what that looks like, to be honest with you.
we talked about it a little bit
But
earlier.
there's
Common aspirations.
Yeah.
Individual aspiration based on goals, principles, and purpose. Family aspirations, community aspirations, societal aspirations, national aspirations, global aspirations. I think the breakdown in the communist situation is they forget the individual and the empowerment of the individual. People are forced to do things. People that should be doctors are working in Foxconn building iPhones, so they jump off the building.
Right.
People
Yeah.
that should be farmers.
I'm not saying that. I'm talking more like their school system.
Yeah.
More or less just how they indoctrinate their kids. Now, I'm not saying we shouldn't indoctrinate kids. But what I'm saying is they do push a unity and a goal-focused curriculum, right?
They do.
to show a type of purpose. Now, obviously, I think that we don't want to do it like they do, but I do believe that the type of purpose. Now, obviously, I think that we don't want to do it like they do, but I do believe that there needs to be. I don't know what it is, man. That but there has to be some kind of, almost Star Trekian type thing. These, you're trying
Star
to
Trekian.
explore the planets and the worlds. Yes, Trekian.
And I don't think you're wrong. I don't think you're wrong. I think the biggest difference between the Chinese folks and the United States, Western civilization, primarily the United States, I think it's one of the greatest points of the United States, is the assumption that's built into the Constitution of individual liberty, but that was built on a moral people of aspiration, right? The presupposition that this is for a moral people that are aspirational. We have to have aspiration as people, we have to have purpose, and we have to have goals, especially as men. I think constraining those goals or architecting those goals from a top-down situation, regardless of individuals' wants, desires, or strengths, the SWOT analysis, strength, weak, opportunity, and threat. If you're not allowed to maximize for the individual, as a collective, you have you falter. You're weakened because you're not allowing things to Adam Smith and
highlight strengths.
Yeah,
in a sense. Yeah.
Adam Smith calls it the invisible hand in Wealth of Nations. Something a single person or group of people can dictate every action and everything that should be done as it should be done is a fallacy. I think they will try to use AI to achieve that, and I think it will still be a fallacy. It's too much. There's too much, and some things need to be allowed to work themselves out to an extent. But finding the balance.
I agree. Yeah. Well, I think that's dope. So maybe you help me clear that up. By the way, so maybe that's it. It's more like empowering the individual to actually have a realistic hope and aspiration, and teach to have more aspiration outside of get a job and have kids so you can get a social security number for the government.
Yeah, I absolutely agree.
I think you nailed it. I really do, because I just think, but that's it, right? It almost kind of like in Fallout, the game. You know what I mean? You're okay. Hey, you have a skill and aptitude. Here you go. This is what you need to do.
Yeah.
This is how we do it, because we're rebuilding society. Your good skill is here. You are an engineer. Now, if you want to be something else, you have every right to choose something else. But here's where your aptitude is. This is what you want. What your areas you're good at. Let's build on your core strength, and then but allow you to freely choose that direction as you build that skill.
Right.
Because you're good at something, sometimes you tend to gravitate to it. Right? I didn't want to be in sales. I fucking hated sales. I sold cars when I was 18. I was like, fuck sales. I'm done. Not my thing. Well, it turned out I'm really good at sales, but I didn't realize the different levels of sales and different things that I could do. And it turned out that I'm really good at marketing, branding, sales, all that I'm really good at. But it took me years to figure out that, this is not, hone those skills and realize it still brought me back to what I'm good at.
Yeah. Which I think is a much better approach. And if people are allowed to do what they have a passion for, their propensity for success is much higher. And just like a community,
and the benefit to society.
Yes. Just like a
community, and the benefit to society.
Yes. Just like a community and society is built on a strong individual, economically, socioeconomically, by using a hammer as a hammer, letting a hammer be a hammer, everybody will be better off, and the next generation of hammers will be better off.
Yeah.
But that's under the assumption that they understand that they're a hammer and that they pursue being a hammer.
Right. And I think that's it too. But when you get that individual liberty of being yourself, chasing your... You said, what was it? I think it is 90% of people... You said, what was it? I think it is 90% of people just exist. I think it is. People just exist. I think it is.
I'm not
90% of people just are automated, basically. They're bots.
I think
They
it's
don't
probably
think
lower than that,
anything
but
else. What's that?
I think it's probably a lower percentage, but I agree with the overall sentiment. It's a high
Okay, I'm not
percentage.
sure. You go home, watch Netflix, wake up in the morning, go to work. And there's nothing wrong with that. But there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. But I think part of that is a societal structure and not a. Well, maybe it is more of an evolution structure, because that's kind of that being an animal type deal. Animals work in routines and rhythms, and
So it's actually a nurture and nature thing, I think. So nature, we're creatures of habit. We like, and our bodies are happier. We're better off mentally for the most part. Most people are better off mentally when they have a routine. They get up at the same time. They go do the same things ish. They go to bed at the same time. Have a steady and stable diet. They're generally happier. Conditionally, our education system is built on the Prussian model to make soldiers, which was then co-opted by the Rockefellers to make factory workers. The Department of Education, this is conspiratorial, I'm sure. The Department of Education is actually born out of an association that Rockefeller created, born out of an association that Rockefeller created to influence the education system to produce factory workers, which at the time was workers, and I would argue colleges. We are following a script, and most people are just fine with that. Like you said, I don't know what the percentage is, but there is, I would say probably most likely, I would say the majority. Though I do think, yeah, I do think that's part of the malaise of the millennial generation, the newest generations, is they are waking up. They are realizing, they see it. They were born with the internet, and they see what's happening. They understand. They're smart enough to see what's going on, and they don't like it. They know that this is trying to turn them into box checkers, and they do not want to be box checkers. But there is
they don't.
option presented. They don't know.
That's the problem. Yes.
They don't know that there's an option for them to, and that they should, and their own principles, because they understand them and believe them. They should discern their own purpose because they understand and believe it, not just allow someone else to do it for them. They don't see the option. They don't know the option exists. They know something is wrong, but they're not sure what it is or how to fix it. But we're not taught that, right? We're not taught that in our communities. We're not taught that in their families. We're definitely not taught that in our school systems. So they get very frustrated, and things like communism sound like a great idea because they're sold as an option, as an answer. The same is true though of capitalism, right? Capitalism, as we're experiencing it currently, is not really capitalism. It's a hot mess.
Yeah. No, it's capitalism. It's Z. Is it? What's generation 4 millennials?
Gen Z, then Gen Y.
It is Z.
Yeah.
So we'll say Gen Z-ish. Y. You know, my generation is X, right? Right there on the border, anyway. And I think we started waking up. And I think you're right. The reality, the advent of, man, do I really want to work in this, and survive, on this small crumbs for what? I can go out, try to get money. That's why you got more kids than ever trying to find hustles and not trying to, dude, they don't want to go to they don't want to go to work. They want to figure out something. They want to live life. Dude, they don't want to go to they don't want to go to work. They want to figure out something. They want to live life. But the problem is there's no life to live because the system's not set up beyond go to work, make a paycheck, and pay the bills and pay taxes.
Well, so as much as people hate the boomers were the first ones to start waking up. But then corporate America lulled them back to sleep with big salaries, big paychecks, and the promise of retirement. And most of them went back to sleep. Gen X by the time the system got to us, the system was broken, right? And we were the first ones that had to deal with all the ramifications of the system being broken. The promise that our parents had, the lives that our parents had, the careers that our parents had didn't exist, don't exist, won't ever again exist. Our mid-20s, early 30s, that it was an absolute lie. After collapse, after collapse, after collapse, after economic downturn, lie. After collapse, after collapse, after collapse, after economic downturn, we realized, wait a minute, this is bullshit. And not all of us, most of us realized it fairly young. When we watching our parents, we realized this is bullshit. These kids not only see it in their parents going through all these economic collapses and all that stuff, they're seeing it in the colleges, they're seeing it even in the classrooms, right? They're realizing, because they have access to the internet, they've been on the internet their entire lives, they're realizing that most of the stuff they're teaching is nonsense. And that the reason they're teaching it is nonsense. And that they're not actually learning anything, they're just checking boxes. But so, what's the answer? What do? Do we let the need to run aground? We see the lighthouse, we know the rocks are coming. What do? Do we sit down and let it run aground? Or do we grab the damn wheel?
I think that depends to find what the wheel is, though.
So, going back to, and this is the same thought process that went on the origination of this exercise, the fraternity, right? So what is the wheel? What is the wheel? Is it the wheel of power? Is it the White House? No. The White House doesn't make up the world. It sets some rules, sets the tone, and kind of plays a game. It's a show. What is the wheel? Rules sets the tone and kind of plays a game. It's a show. What is the wheel? What is the machine? Machine is an entire global system of companies and trade. But that really comes down to a large series of behaviors and understandings, perspectives. The wheel, then, if it is on the individual basis, if we are a collection of individuals, the wheel is on the individual basis, if we are a collection of individuals. The wheel, then, is the individual, is it not? Well, not really.
True.
Because you can grab the horse and you can drown him in the trough, but you can't make him drink. It's like that far right friend or the far left friend. The ideology, drink. It's like that far right friend or the far left friend. The ideology has got them blinded. It's been conflated with identity. And in identity, a resistance to change, even against massive cognitive dissonance. So then what's the wheel? I think the wheel is the mind of the individual. And just like you can't make the horse drink, you can't really change their mind. But what you can do is give them a set of information for them to discover. And in discovery and self-discovery, and the real trick is that it's not even the set of information, it's the perspective for them to discover themselves. That's my conclusion anyways.
I kind of like that. I think that's it. I think so. So really, it's the individual collective. The individual within the collective.
Yes. So right now, and this is actually being used, if you want to get conspiratorial, if you've read The Prince by Machiavelli or Propaganda by Edward Bernays, and you sit back and you observe society, this wheel that I describe has been hijacked by others, by marketing firms and businesses and states, and by states I don't mean Texas, I mean individuals to think and believe a certain way, generally not for themselves. So right now the wheel is being driven by not understand yourself, not understand that you're a hammer and how to be the best hammer you can be for yourself, your family, and your community. The wheel is you are this thing and you are to do this, and it's largely you are the wheel is you are this thing and you are to do this, and it's largely you are a consumer, and you will be happy when you become the ultimate consumer. You will achieve the highest status when you become the ultimate consumer. And what you want is status. Status will make you happy. Happiness is in the next bottle of Coke. It's in the fancy car. It's in the Lamborghini in the big house. As Jim Carrey said, no, I've quoted this a million times on here. I wish that everyone could be rich and famous So they realize that that's not the answer. So if that's the wheel or how they're steering now, then the antithetical position to that would be show everyone their own wheel. Instead of giving the wheel to someone else that's obviously not working in their interest, show them that they're their own car and that they have their own wheel.
Oh, so interesting caveat here. Wouldn't that be the advent of perhaps AI, Neuralink-ish ability to enhance one's mind?
That could go either way, right? So it depends on
right.
like any tool. So you could use AI right now, as it is right now, to better understand yourself to the level that I'm describing.
Right.
If you understand right now, AI is actually fairly well suited for that. It's if you give it those parameters, it's not a good therapist, but it is a good thinking partner, if that makes any sense.
It does make sense because I use it all the time for thinking. All right.
Yeah, it helps you structure your thoughts, and it's good at building frameworks. It's very good at building frameworks, and it has access to all the works of all the greatest psychological thinkers that have ever existed. So in extrapolating, it can absolutely take those frameworks and apply it to an outcome that you're trying to accomplish, and then ask you questions through those frameworks to get you to wherever the heck it is you want to go. That is to better understanding yourself, and it is infinitely patient, and it is not judgmental. So that is definitely something that you can do. But it is not something that most people have the awareness to endeavor, or the patience to endeavor. Or the patience to endeavor, or the amount of basal information to endeavor. They don't even have the perspective that it's a thing or that it's useful, right? So
Yeah.
which is actually concurrent with the Constitution and its original assertions. Among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, right? What that means essentially is what I'm talking about. You have to do a shit ton of reading to understand that. And I don't mean just the Declaration of Independence. I mean all the things that the writers of the Declaration of Independence read to come to those conclusions. The Federalist and Anti-Federalist Papers, Independence read to come to those conclusions. The Federalist and Anti-Federalist Papers don't hurt. They're actually quite helpful in understanding the ethos of the time.
Yep.
The perspective
Well,
necessary.
that's a good question. That's the kind of the issue of the era too, right? Is there's this information that you can access, but if you don't access the information in its entirety, then you can get whatever you want out of it. Just like with anything else, you read the Bible and you can kind of take what you want out of the Bible if you so choose, with no guidance. That's how it's written.
Make it say
well, that's
whatever you
how
want.
everything's written.
Yeah. You can take one passage out of context and justify, rationalize anything.
Yeah, and I believe that's part of, well, especially with the advent of this the data that we are, blessed to have. I love the fact that you said read the Federalist, the Anti-Federalist, all those papers. In our country, we have a lot of people that I love the Constitution. Well, have you actually read it? Okay. Love it. Okay, great. Well, why don't you read it? Okay, did you understand it? I didn't think so. Okay, now can you want to understand it? And I do believe being a connoisseur of history.
Well, it's bigger than
helps
that,
you
right?
put.
So you need to read
Yeah.
Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. You need to read The Republic by Plato.
Ah.
Yeah.
Yes.
The guys that wrote that thing were philosophers. They were deep thinkers and heavy readers. They were in their 20s and 30s when they did this, by the way. But
yeah, they weren't young.
No, they were young.
They were young to our age.
Oh,
but old to their. In their age, they're mid-age. At 20 years old, you're middle age.
Yeah, because you're dying at 45, 50, right?
Yeah, yeah. If you made it to 30, man, you were fucking doing pretty good.
Yeah.
But that's true. But that's because all they did was what? Consume information.
Well, they didn't just
read.
They discussed it at length. They understood rhetoric.
And what?
Yeah,
Right.
they
Yeah,
understood
they
debate.
discussed too. They thought tanks and
Yeah, there
or
was a
think
lot of
tanks.
heated debate, and sometimes it was fistfights.
Yeah.
It's,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
but over ideas and principles. The intertwining between faith and the nation is something hotly contested. A lot of people assert that the separation of church and state is in the Constitution. It is not. It was in a letter from Thomas Jefferson.
Oh,
They
no,
learned their
did
lessons
not.
being students of history. The church
Mhm.
did to England and France and
Ah.
Spain, and they did not,
Yeah.
absolutely not,
Well,
want the church running the
no, the
nation.
Catholic Church. The Catholic Church set a precedent. Yeah, I want to keep a religion, at least out of the throes of government,
Yeah.
which is understandable, right? Because you did have what was it? Understandable, right? Because you did have what was it? Oh my gosh, how can I freaking forget this? I'm tired.
Spanish Inquisition.
Where the Inquisition. I think that's the biggest lessons from it all.
Well, it wasn't just the
But I
Inquisition,
think it's
though.
not just church. But that is also what happens when you have a single ruling party.
Yeah, an oligarchy, a theocracy.
Yeah.
Anytime you become beholden to an ideology, which is part of the reason it's framed the way it's framed, anytime you become beholden to an ideology, bad things happen. Capitalism versus communism. Anybody interested at all in sociology or economics should absolutely read Wealth of Nations and the Communist Manifesto. Do a little bit more reading.
Yep.
Go into the Austrian School of Economics, Hayek and all them boys, and read everything else that the rest of the socialists wrote. Engels and Marx, and Engels was actually the brains behind him. Marx was just more charismatic, even though it wasn't really even a functional human being. And you can find it out for yourself. Read it. Find out for yourself. They wrote quite a bit of stuff, and I don't agree with it. I think most of their stuff is nonsense. It's emotional nonsense. But that's for you to decide. You need to read both sides of the argument, a lot of it, the things that influence them, and then from both sides of the argument and the things that influence them so you can actually be informed on the opinions. Because they're giving you opinions based on these other things. If you don't understand the Dunning-Kruger effect, we have just enough information to think you understand a thing, but not enough information to know that you don't. It actually takes quite a bit of study to understand pretty much anything. I struggled like hell for years to understand. Einstein had a series of papers that culminated most famously, and the E equals mc squared equation, and which is really actually a supposition of theorem, which is really actually the supposition of a concept. But I struggled like hell to understand it until I read Poincaré. Once I read Poincaré, then I was like, oh, able to understand what they're saying, right? So it'd be like trying to understand calculus without taking basic math. Are they directly related? Not exactly, but it sure makes it a heck of a lot easier.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what it is, right? It's you like once again, you listen not to respond, but to understand. You read not for an opinion, but to understand, to form an opinion. A lot of people read these days to justify their opinion. So so you're biased.
Confirmation bias.
If you can learn to, yeah, and I mean that's the thing. Like when I try my hardest to truly read I try to understand the subject to formulate my own opinion on. Hey, it can be this is what I feel is the most accurate way of my opinion on this. This is my opinion. Doesn't mean I'm necessarily right or wrong, but this is my conclusion, right? And you can take it as own. We can debate it because an opinion is not a fact necessarily. It is just a way of I've summed to my opinion what I've come to a conclusion on. And that's okay. And that's where, like you said, the Platos of the world and they would put these out there so that on purpose. to create the dialogue, because what happens when you have dialogue, you end up coming to, when you have an honest, open assessment of something, you tend to eventually come to a conclusion as a whole.
Well, that's how you get to your values and principles, right? That's how you get to your values and principles, right? Your beliefs, your purpose is by really looking at yourself, really looking at the information. Anybody that's a Christian because their parents are Christians, I'm sorry. Sorry. You have to look at the information for yourself. You have to understand the information for yourself. You have to draw the conclusions yourself because you understand.
Or is that an atheist?
Well, somebody from New York, or is that somebody from Iowa? Is that someone from Sudan? Or is that someone from Dubai? What they consider a good person is going to be largely framed on their experience. Now, you can use things like Islam or Christianity or Buddhism or Taoism or whatever to help you inform yourself of those opinions. And you're just making blind assumptions. Do you really understand it? And does that mean that they just believe? Does that mean that they just believe because they believe? Either way, they've made a choice. They've gathered enough information for them to make the decision and understanding. And they believe with all that they are. Perhaps that's what he means. When a child believes something...
Well, because the innocence of a child, right? I think the innocence of a child in that statement is they believe everybody is in good nature. You know, children are carefree. They're not worried by the weather. You know, the weight of the world on their shoulders.
Sure.
The political whim. They take everything at face value.
And believe with all that they are.
Yes. The innocence of a child, man.
The joy of a child.
Yeah.
To that, there was a study done sponsored by NASA. And I've actually cited the study in the book of the brother. When we get to that point, I'll dig into it a little deeper. But the study found, this is in the 1960s, Dr. Dude and Dr. Chick, Dudette, whatever, found that 98% of children are geniuses.
Yeah.
And by adulthood, that number is reduced to 8%.
So what's that tell you?
A lot of things.
One, that has to do with everything we talked about tonight.
A lot of it, yeah. Expectations, external expectations.
Expectations, societal norms, environment.
Habits. A lot of things. But that also means that innate ability is still in there somewhere.
Right. Or maybe we can learn to nurture it, and we can have them think about it. If you could nurture everybody to be, you know, a child to maintain and grow within that, well, then we might have a whole different society here.
Absolutely.
In a few generations.
Einstein said if you judge a fish on its ability to climb a tree, everyone will be disappointed.
I love that. I didn't know he said that. That's a good one.
He's got a lot of good quips. I think that's one of my favorites. Or we've come again to 10 o'clock. So I'll finish.
Really?
Yeah, dude. Time flies when you're having fun. Conclusion of expectations. Managing expectations, whether personal or external, requires self-awareness, clear communication, and the ability to adapt to changing circumstances. By understanding what is realistic, setting attainable goals, and learning to deal with disappointment, you can manage your expectations in a way that leads to fulfillment, growth, and success. Striking a balance between striving for excellence and embracing imperfection is essential for long-term well-being.
Yeah.
Any final notes on expectations?
Just expect to be the best person you can be. Expect to make mistakes, but expect to see those mistakes and move forward, and just expect to always move forward. If you go like this, that simple little aspect, the rest will come. That'd be my thoughts.
If I keep climbing, I'll get to the top of the mountain. The top of the mountain.
That's right.
All right, brother. Then hit our
Hey, man.
3, 2, 1. 3 hours on the nose.
Not
I need to get me
sure.
some fiber. That's what I need. I appreciate your time, brother, and I appreciate your input. Salient and wise as usual.
Well, thank you. Too much credit.
Anything I can do for you, brother?
No, man. I appreciate it. Just keep doing what you're doing, and I think just perseverance, patience. I think you're onto something. I think it's critical.
I'm getting the I appreciate that. I'm getting the feedback that I want. It's just not on the scale that I'm looking for yet. And my expectation is through perseverance and persistence, and by the grace of God, I will succeed. So I'm going to keep running under that expectation.
100%. All right, man. Well, you have a good one. Have a good week. Holler at me if you need anything. And if you do have any solutions for this, for us to look into for this dispatch 24/365, let me know. I'm going to be exploring that. We're going to figure out something this week. So just on another business note, any support there always would be helpful.
The dispatch is a lot harder than the conventional customer service. But we can have the
It
conversation
is.
offline.
Yeah, sounds good, buddy.
Hey, Chief.
All right, man. Have a good one.